If you've ever felt like your process changes from good to bad overnight and you can't figure out why, you're not alone. Most teams chase symptoms instead of studying patterns. They fix problems after they happen, celebrate when things look fine, and panic again when quality drops. But there's a better way, a method that lets you see problems forming before they explode. That's the magic of the control chart, one of the most powerful yet misunderstood tools in the Six Sigma toolkit. A control chart is like a heartbeat monitor for your process. It shows whether your system is healthy, unstable, or drifting toward failure. Instead of looking at a single data point, it helps you see the story the data is telling over time. For anyone pursuing a Six Sigma certification, learning how to interpret that story is essential because it's what separates guesswork from true process control. So, what exactly is a control chart? In plain English, it's a simple graph that tracks data points, like measurements, times, or defect counts, over time and compares them against expected limits. Those limits are not arbitrary. They're calculated statistically to reflect the natural range of variation in your process when it's performing normally. The line in the middle, called the center line, represents the process average. The upper and lower control limits mark the boundaries of natural variation. When your data stays within those limits, your process is said to be in control. When it doesn't, something special or unusual is happening, and that's your cue to investigate. Let's bring this to life with a real-world example. Imagine a coffee company that fills bottled cold brew for grocery stores. The label says each bottle contains 355 milliliters. If the filling machines pour too much, the company wastes product. If they pour too little, customers complain or regulators step in. The production manager decides to monitor the fill volume with a control chart. Every hour, a sample of bottles is measured and the data plotted. Over time, the chart starts to take shape, a wavy line bouncing around the center, sometimes higher, sometimes lower. Most points fall comfortably within the control limits. That's normal variation. Tiny differences that come from machine temperature, fluid pressure, or bottle shape. But one afternoon, a few points suddenly rise close to the upper limit, then one shoots past it. That's a signal. It tells the manager that something changed beyond normal randomness. When the team investigates, they find that a nozzle had partially clogged, creating back pressure that caused the machine to overfill. They clean the nozzle, the data returns to normal, and production stays stable. Without that chart, the team might not have noticed the problem until customers complained or costs ballooned. The control chart acted like an early warning system. It didn't fix the problem, but it pointed directly to when and where to look. That's what makes it so powerful. It turns data into insight. Control charts come in many flavors, but the principle is always the same. Use data over time to separate normal variation from special causes. You might use an X bar and R chart for continuous data like weight or time, or a P chart for proportions, such as the percentage of defective items. The choice depends on what kind of data you have, but the thinking process never changes. You collect consistent data, plot it over time, and interpret the signals. Now let's talk about why this tool is a cornerstone of Six Sigma certification training. Six Sigma is all about reducing variation and improving predictability. Control charts are how you prove whether you've achieved that. They tell you if a process is stable enough to measure, whether your improvements are working, and whether they hold up over time. In other words, they turn quality from a feeling into a fact. If your process is out of control, you can't trust your data or your results. That's why in Six Sigma projects, before you try to improve a process, you first check whether it's stable using a control chart. But like any tool, control charts can be misunderstood or misused. One common pitfall is confusing control limits with specification limits. Specification limits come from customer requirements. They say what's acceptable. Control limits come from your process. They show what's typical. Mixing them up leads to wrong conclusions. A process can be perfectly stable, yet still produce defects if it's centered incorrectly relative to specs. The goal is not just stability, but stability aligned with customer expectations. Another mistake is reacting to every little change. People new to control charts sometimes overreact when a point moves slightly up or down, but not every fluctuation means trouble. Random variation is natural. The chart's power lies in helping you tell the difference between noise and signal. A rule of thumb is that 1 point outside the control limits, or a pattern like 7 points in a row trending upward, suggests a special cause worth investigating. Anything else might just be the system breathing. A third pitfall is poor data discipline. Control charts rely on consistent sampling. Same method, same timing, same conditions. If data is collected haphazardly, the chart becomes meaningless. For example, if the coffee company sometimes samples fresh bottles and sometimes samples cooled ones, temperature differences could distort the readings. That's why Six Sigma practitioners stress standardization. You can't control what you don't measure correctly. The beauty of control charts is that they also tell a story of improvement. After you make a process change, say upgrade a machine or retrain operators, you can watch the chart shift. If the average moves closer to the target and variation narrows, that's visual proof of success. And if it drifts back later, you'll see that too. In that way, the chart becomes both a diagnostic and a scoreboard. Let's go back to our coffee company. Suppose they make several process tweaks, installing better nozzles, automating temperature control, and retraining staff. Over a few weeks, their control chart shows tighter clustering around the center line, and the control limits narrow. That means variation has dropped. The process is more consistent, and the company can confidently reduce overfill without risking underfill. In financial terms, they're saving money every day while keeping customers happy. That's Six Sigma in action, data-driven improvement that sticks. Another reason control charts are invaluable for those pursuing Six Sigma certification is that they build statistical intuition. They help you feel the rhythm of a process. Once you get used to reading them, you start to sense when a process is behaving oddly, even before the numbers confirm it. You develop what experienced quality professionals call process sense. It's like a pilot knowing when an engine sounds off, even if all the instruments look fine. And here's something often overlooked. Control charts aren't just for factories. They work anywhere data flows over time. You can chart hospital wait times, website load speeds, customer service calls, even error rates in billing systems. The same logic applies. If you track it, you can understand it. If you understand it, you can control it. And once you can control it, you can improve it sustainably. So what's the key takeaway? Control charts teach you to see variation not as chaos, but as information. They show that every process has a rhythm, and your job as a Six Sigma professional is to keep that rhythm stable and in tune with your goals. The next time your team faces a recurring problem, don't just fix the symptom, plot the data. Watch the story unfold. Somewhere between those lines lies the truth about your process. And if you're on your Six Sigma certification journey, remember this. Tools like control charts aren't just academic exercises. They're habits of thought, ways of seeing that transform how you manage work and lead teams. The more you use them, the more natural they feel. Eventually, you won't just react to problems. You'll predict them, prevent them, and keep your process in perfect control. That's the heart of Six Sigma mastery.